Diamond Tiara opened her eyes and looked around. Her room was dark. Only occasionally a lightning strike was tearing at the sky, making every detail of Diamond's surroundings perfectly visible. Diamond could feel the warmth of Silver Spoon's body. Her friend was calmly breathing in her sleep. When Diamond had first met her, she was surprised to find out that she wasn't afraid of storms. She simply adored the nights like this one. From what Diamond knew, it was one of the many things Silver had inherited from her Pegasus mother. Diamond smirked when she thought about the Pegasi. Although storms were usually large and complicated operations, many weather team members couldn't resist an occasion to show their family and friends how fun their work was. Once again, Diamond Tiara thought about Silver Spoon. It was her mother whom she'd heard complaining about making storms a bloody picnic. Interesting choice of words, Diamond Tiara thought. She freed herself from Silver Spoon's grasp and reached under her bed. The paring knife was in the same place where she'd left it. She looked at the blade. It still looked as perfect as ever. Diamond Tiara got out of bed and stretched her hooves. Silver Spoon muttered something about and hugged Diamond Tiara's pillow, but didn't wake up. Diamond Tiara sighed with relief. She took her saddlebags and put the knife in one of them. Then she put them on and trotted to the window. She didn't want to use the door that Silver Spoon had locked before going to bed. Even though Silver was able to sleep calmly through storms, clicking of the lock was enough to wake her. Diamond Tiara had never asked why she insisted on doing that. As she knew from her own experience, pony minds often worked in weird ways. Besides, Diamond Tiara knew exactly that it was one of the things Silver definitely wouldn't want to talk with her about. Well, now I have such a thing too, Diamond Tiara thought and opened the window. Lightning struck somewhere above the Everfree Forest, but she didn't even flinch. Instead, she jumped out the window, landing on the wet grass. Walking through the garden, she thought of yet another reason why she'd wanted to avoid using the door. Filthy Rich was often working at night. He'd probably be interested in where his daughter was going in the middle of a knife, with a knife in her saddlebags. Before she made it to the hole in the hedge, her coat and mane were soaked. She didn't care about that. Silver Spoon was more important to her than any other pony in the world, including herself. Who dared to hit her had to be punished. Diamond Tiara got out of the garden and galloped through the town, fighting down the muddy roads. There, just like she expected, the streets were completely devoid of ponies. Cold rain had poured on her. She felt awake as she'd never been before. She felt like she was unstoppable. Her body was bigger, her hooves were stronger. She couldn't see anything through the wall of water in front of her, but her legs seemed to know where to go. Something in her head was telling her that the whole trip wasn't making any sense. Rainbow Dash was probably taking care of Scootaloo, not letting her fall off the cloud. Diamond Tiara didn't even know exactly where the other team was. There were many variables she had to take into account, but it seemed that her mind was already calculating them. Diamond Tiara trot through Ponyville's outskirts. For a brief moment, she stopped in place where she'd met Pipsqueak. His blood had been washed off the ground by the rain, but when Diamond inhaled, she found that she could still sense it. Her heart started to beat faster. She lowered her head and ran forward to the silent wall of trees, the first outpost of the Everfree Forest. Another lightning struck a tree not far from her. The roar was deafening. She fell on the ground, covering her ears. Then she blinked, trying to get her bearings. Large raindrops were pounding against her head, making it almost impossible to focus. I should go back, she thought. What am I even doing? Scootaloo did a terrible thing, but... Go back now? Another voice in her head scolded. Do you want Silver to think that you're too weak to help her? No, she replied. But it's crazy. I don't want to. No time for your whining. Look. Even though there was no pony to show her where to look, she knew the direction exactly. Through the pouring torrents of rain, she saw a small silhouette fighting against the strong wind. It was hopeless. The Pegasus's wings were too small and too weak to resist the forces of nature. The thrashing filly hit the tops of trees not far away from the place where Diamond Tiara was standing and disappeared into the forest. Now's your chance, the voice in her head said. She licked her lips slowly and trot into the forest. Branches were smacking her face, but she didn't pay attention to them, trampling the brushes under her hoofs. Finally, she reached the clearing. She was standing knee-deep in mud. There were scratches on her face and loose branches in her mane. When another lightning struck somewhere above her, she saw her aim. An orange silhouette resting against a tree not far away from a stump. Damatiara approached Scootaloo and looked at her. The filly was unconscious. She had a black eye and one of her legs was bent at a weird angle. Only her shallow breath was indicating that she was alive. Damatiara sighed. Stabbing Scootaloo like that would be a mercy. If she died quickly right here, she'd never feel what Silver Spoon had felt. The fear deeply rooted in her mind. The fear that Scootaloo had unknowingly awoken. Damatiara couldn't allow that. She trotted to Scootaloo, rubbed a hoopful of water from a nearby puddle, and poured it in her face. Scootaloo coughed and blinked, then hissed when she accidentally moved her injured leg and looked around groggily. "Hello," Damatiara said. Scootaloo's eyes focused on her. "Damatiara, what are you doing here?" "Oh, I was just passing by." Damatiara smiled innocently, playing with the straps of her saddlebags. "Passing by," Scootaloo exclaimed. "Ugh, fuck." She groaned, holding her head. "Never mind. Back to Ponyville and get someone to help me." "Don't worry. There's no need to hurry," Damatiara replied calmly. She sat next to Scootaloo, searching through her saddlebags. "No need to hurry? Listen, there's no time for your games. I can die here." Scootaloo hissed and rubbed her leg. "Funny that you mentioned that." Damatiara looked directly into her eyes. "That's some kind of sick joke." Scootaloo yelled at her as loud as her injuries would allow her. Damatiara saw a spark in her eyes and realized that she wasn't going to give up easily. "Chill out, Scootaloo," she said. "I'll help you." In one swift motion, Damatiara took the knife from her saddlebags. Scootaloo froze. She tried to dodge her, but she was too slow. The knife found its way into the base of her left wing. A scream tore the silence. The blade, as Damatiara noted with disappointment, was too small to sever the wing completely. However, piercing through the hub of nerve endings and arteries was surely painful. "Don't pull it out," Damatiara said to Scootaloo, who was thrashing in the mud, crying and choking. "You don't want to bleed out, do you?" "Fuck you!" Scootaloo yelled. "Language, filly." Damatiara shook her head. She approached Scootaloo and kicked her broken leg, causing her to scream again. "Are you scared now?" she asked, standing on Scootaloo's left wing, which was twitching erratically. "I bet you are." "Shut up, you sick bitch!" Scootaloo hissed through grit teeth. Instead of replying, Damatiara stomped on her wing, feeling delicate bones snap under her hooves. She continued to do that till she was sure every single one of them were crushed. More blood poured from Scootaloo's wound, but the knife was preventing her from bleeding out. "Try to fly now." Damatiara smirked. One look into Scootaloo's eyes revealed the spark disappeared from them. She was whimpering and shivering, trying to make herself as small as possible. "Now I can see you're scared." Damatiara smiled triumphantly. "Now you know what Silver felt." "So it's about her?" Scootaloo's voice was barely audible. It was slurred. She bit her tongue when Damatiara had broken her wing. "You didn't tease Ruby." "So it's about her?" Damatiara asked, mocking her. "I'm going to surprise you. Silver had nothing to do with Ruby. Hell, Ruby didn't even want to kill herself in the first place." She grinned widely, seeing Scootaloo's expression when she understood what Diamond meant. Scootaloo's lips moved. She couldn't utter a single word. "Oh? You still feel sorry for her, right?" Damatiara asked. "Passion is such a strange thing. I can see Silver's fear, and that's why you're here. But do you want to feel what Ruby felt?" With those words, Damatiara grabbed Scootaloo's mane and dragged her, screaming and thrashing, to the swamp. She had to admit that Scootaloo was strong. She almost managed to free herself, but with a quick kick to her mangled wing, she almost rendered her unconscious. She was barely able to resist when Diamond pushed her head into the muddy water. Her body was starting to thrash around violently, fighting for breath. Diamond Tiara winced when Scootaloo emptied her bladder, filling the air with the stench of urine, but slowly the Pegasus was losing all strength. Her moves became weaker and weaker, less coordinated. Diamond, what are you doing? Diamond Tiara froze. Surely Scootaloo, who emerged from the swamp and lay on her back, panting and retching. Diamond Tiara didn't care about her. She slowly turned around to face the pony who'd found her. Silver Spoon was soaked to the bone. Her mane was hanging freely, and the lenses of her glasses were covered in drops of water. Her face was pale, almost the same color as her hair. I'm avenging you, Diamond Tiara said calmly. Avenging me? Are you crazy? Silver Spoon exclaimed. Her eyes widened in horror when she spotted Scootaloo, who was still lying in the mud, her body shaken by dry heave. Maybe, Diamond Tiara replied. She staggered slightly when her vision blurred for a while. How did you get here? I woke up and saw the open window and traces, Silver Spoon muttered. Diamond, I told you I didn't want you to hurt her. And you remember what I told you? Diamond Tiara asked. She approached Scootaloo and pulled the knife out of her wound. Pain woke Scootaloo up. She screamed and pushed her hoof through the gaping hole at the base of her wing, trying to stop the bleeding. No! Silver Spoon exclaimed. Diamond, stop it! I can't, Diamond Tiara replied. Her vision blurred. She could barely see her hoof with the knife. Silver? She heard a scream. Almost immediately, it silenced, replaced by coughing and the sound of something heavy falling on the ground. Then she heard someone's laughter. She opened her eyes and found she was lying on the ground. The knife in front of her was lying in a red puddle. She still heard a weak chuckling behind her. Why are you laughing? She yelled. Avenging. Scootaloo's voice was barely recognizable. Diamond Tiara turned to see her. She was bleeding profusely from her wing and mouth, but despite that, she was laughing. Avenging, protecting, and when she sees you, slit her throat? Scootaloo's laughter ended in a fit of coughing. Best friends forever. Huh? Diamond Tiara froze. She didn't have to look back. She could easily imagine Silver Spoon's body lying in the mud, her head almost completely severed by the sharp blade. Shut up! She yelled to Scootaloo. Or what? You'll kill me? Scootaloo laughed. Her laughter was still echoing through the forest when Diamond Tiara picked up the knife and began to stab her repeatedly, changing her body into an unrecognizable pulp. Rain. Rain was cleaning her body and mind. The blood was mixing with water, flowing off of her coat. Even the smallest spot had no chance. Soon she was as clean as pristine as ever. She was walking home, brimming with pride. 2 ponies, 2 lives. Their fate was in her hooves. She looked at the sleeping town and smiled. The fate of every single pony in Equestria was in her hooves. Diamond Tiara's eyes shot open. She rolled out of bed, shuddering and landing on the floor. Curled in a fetal position, she tried to stand up, but the world around her began to spin. She tried to inhale, but she couldn't catch her breath. Her stomach was aching. She started to retch and threw up on the floor. I killed Silver Spoon. It's Celestia. I killed Silver Spoon. Diamond? She heard a sleepy voice above her. Luna Diamond, are you alright? I killed Silver Spoon. Suddenly, Diamond Tiara blinked and looked around. The voice asking her if she was okay was familiar. She rolled onto her back, carefully avoiding the pile of vomit on the floor, and saw Silver Spoon staring at her from the bed with a worried expression. I'm okay. It must have been something I ate. Silver Spoon put a hoof on her forehead. You're cold. And wet, she said, wiping a hoof on the blanket. Did you take a shower? A shower? Tiara looked at her hooves. They were covered in scratches. The fur was indeed wet, which explained why she felt so cold. Yes. Maybe. Strange, I didn't hear the lock, Silver Spoon said. She helped Diamond Tiara to get down and lie on the bed. You'd better stay here. I'll tell your dad that you're sick. She looked at the floor. And I'll call someone to clean this. For a moment, their eyes met, and Diamond Tiara felt as if her head exploded. An image of the forest appeared in her mind. She heard the sound of snapping bones and the sound of Silver Spoon's glasses cracking when she stomped on them, before throwing them into the swamp as far as she could. Diamond? Silver Spoon asked. Diamond Tiara blinked and saw her room again. I'm okay, she said. I think I had a nightmare or something. To her surprise, Silver Spoon smiled. So you managed to fall asleep tonight? She exclaimed. I'd rather not sleep than have dreams like that, Diamond Tiara muttered. Suddenly, she started to cough. You really should stay in bed, Silver Spoon said, helping her wrap herself up in a blanket. I told you, the gray Pegasus mare with a light gray mane said. I told you so many times. No, bring your kids to work days during the storms. Silver Speed, Rainbow Dash shouted. That's not the point. We need to find her. The door burst open, and another couple of Pegasi entered the Royal Guard station. Most of them were nodding off, some of them were soaked. We didn't find her, said Helia. Thunderlane and Cloudchaser are searching the northern parts of the forest. Crap, Rainbow Dash muttered. Glitter? She's not at the orchard, Glitter replied, whimpering. Rainbow Dash trotted to her and braced her with her wing. How's Kicker? She asked. Bad. She said it's her fault. Because it is! Silver Speed exclaimed, earning nasty glares from the rest of the Pegasi. Yeah, because you're a role model when it comes to taking care of foals, Glitter said. Rainbow Dash, Helia, and Flusher Flash had to contain Silver Speed before she managed to reach her. Ride Control decided that was enough. He approached the group, clearing his throat. Everyone looked at him. You tell me exactly what's going on? He asked. Or did you just choose the station for a place to argue? My little cousin's missing, Glitter replied. Her name is Alaya. Ride Control thought for a moment. He remembered the small yellow Pegasus with a purple mane. She was his neighbor, his granddaughter's friend. He thought about Frontkick's findings and shuddered. Alula? He asked. Cloudkicker's sister? Yeah, this one, Rainbow Dash replied. He was blown off a cloud by a wind during the night. You didn't violate the OSH. She wouldn't have even been there, Silver Speed muttered. That's not the point, Ride Control said, staring at her carefully. He knew everything about the ponies from Ponyville. Silver Speed was still a mystery to him. For a long time, she lived in Van Hoover, then came to Ponyville with her daughter about 3 years ago. She was still quite young, maybe 27 years old. He didn't know much about her husband. According to the gossip, he was rich and liked young mares. Silver Speed was rich too, although she wasn't officially a part of the weather team. She was providing financial support and occasionally helping the Pegasus with the difficult operations. So, when did you all see her last? Ride Control asked. About midnight, I think, Glitter said. Somewhere above the Everfree Forest, I think. She shuddered and sunk her face in Helia's coat. We wanted to look for her instantly, but it was too dangerous, Rainbow Dash said. We hope she managed to land and went back home. Riot Control wanted to ask another question, but before he managed to open his mouth, the door bust open again. Another group of ponies came in. Riot Control looked at it once more and thought that group was a bad word. It was half the town, led by Lyra, Bonbon, Vinyl Scratch, Octavia, Minette, and Berry Punch. Among the rest, he saw Applejack, Rarity, Derpy Hooves, Time Turner, Carrot Top, and many other ponies that he knew well. His friends, neighbors, all were chatting nervously. "What happened?" he asked, seeing that Bonbon was wiping her eyes. Lyra was trying to cheer her up, but apparently she was failing miserably. Another foal went missing," Vinyl Scratch stammered. Riot Control knew her well. Numerous times he had been walking her home and locking her in the cell, drugged or drunk, but he'd never seen her so nervous. "Alula?" Riot Control asked. "We're already working on this case." "No," Minette said. "It's Bonbon's sister, Twist. She just went to the garden for a moment, didn't come back," Bonbon wept. "We're afraid that someone could, like when Pipsqueak," Carrot Top added. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "Not only him," Berry Punch shouted. Riot Control realized to his surprise that she was sober. "My daughter was murdered, and no one did anything about that." Did Front Kick tell her? Riot Control thought. More ponies were yelling or whispering angrily. He rubbed his temples. "I can assure you we're working on these cases," he said. "You're working, but someone still has full naps, our children," someone shouted. "Maybe it's that zebra." "Alula disappeared in the Everfree. It must be that zebra." "So it begins," Riot Control thought bitterly. "Grab your torches and sharpen your pitchforks." "It could be anyone. Scratch or..." Suddenly, Berry Punch was approaching Minette. "You were surprisingly effective with that sleeping pill. And when my daughter died, you suddenly remembered about me." "That's because I thought you'd drink yourself to death, you old ungrateful plonker," Minette snapped. "If you cared about her..." "Stop it!" Lyra exclaimed, stopping Berry Punch from attacking Minette. "We'll never find them if you keep choosing each other." "It's a shame that this town only has 2 gods," Octavia observed. "Finally, someone agrees with me," Riot Control muttered. "Dude, I never thought I'd say that, but we need to help the guards," Vinyl said. "All right, guys, listen to me. DJ Pony speaking." The crowd silenced. Not that Vinyl had any authority over them. She could just be really loud when she wanted to. "I think we should organize Neighborhood Watch," she said. "This way we'll be able to find them." The crowd began to articulate their approval. Vinyl smirked and leaned to Riot Control. "See? That's how you do it," she whispered into his ear. "Soon you'll have this fucker's head on a tray." "That's what I'm afraid of," Riot Control muttered.